I'm Rayna from Garden District Bookshop in New Orleans, and I'm really excited tonight to welcome Byron Lane and Angela Hill here with us from California and Maine. And in my research for this event and looking up Byron, it was fascinating. I mean, he's from the New Orleans area. He worked at WWL with Angela and then flew the coop and went off to bigger and better things. He has written and starred in feature films and web series and a play, Tilda Swinton Answers an Ad on Craigslist, which I have to say is an amazing title, first of all. And secondly, if you get bored later, you should put that thing back together and bring it down to New Orleans because I can't see it. That's the wonderful and the terrible things about plays is if you miss the window, you miss it. But every single review I read leading up to tonight was like, it's spectacular, it's fabulous, must see. And I'm like, yes, please do that. So, you know, when you get bored later.
Yes, I'd love to.
And then that leads us up to his debut novel, A Star is Bored. You probably know this already if you are here, but Byron spent 3 years as a personal assistant for Carrie Fisher, and he used that time to inspire this amazing, hilarious debut novel, which is complete fiction, by the way, absolute fiction. And we have this obviously for sale at the bookstore. If you don't have one yet, I will put a link over here so you can get one. And tonight he's in conversation with Angela Hill, who is an amazing journalist and award-winning, and she spent 38 years, which is just amazing, anchoring at WWL here, which is the local CBS affiliate for those of you who don't know. And I've only been in New Orleans for 15 years, but when I first moved here, Angela Hill's name was just around. And I was like, I need to know, because generations of people grew up getting the news from Angela, and I'm new here, and I'm like, I need to know. And she was one of the people that I met from afar, watching her just like everybody else and getting to know New Orleans and what's going on here and how to become a member of this amazing community. So
legend and an icon.
Yes, yes.
Old and out of prison. That's why we
Stop.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm gonna step back and turn it over to Byron and Angela, and they can talk about Byron's new book.
Yes. Thank you, Rayna, for everything. And we meant when we said you've organized this beautifully. I wanted to say, first of all, the book, read it. It's first of all beautifully written. As I told Byron, it truly made me laugh and it made me cry. But when he sent me this copy, he wrote in there nice words and then said to Mom. And you will never know how much that meant. I'm gonna take just a few seconds and say, we go back to the 1990s. You were still at Loyola.
Yep.
Got the job at Channel 4, the intern, and then they saw your writing talent, very young, and even before you graduated, got to write for the morning news. So I always knew you were super talented. But what I always remember the most is your tremendous heart.
Oh,
tremendous heart and your tremendous sensitivity. And I knew then you wanted to be a reporter. And to me, those are two components they must have. Then he flies the coop. He goes to Las Vegas. And if you remember, my husband Erwin and I went to Las Vegas to be wild people, and we took you to dinner.
Yeah.
And you were so serious and intense about it. And yes, it's Glitz City, but we do economic reports too, because it's business. And I thought, you know, he's really got it. The next thing I know, you're in LA and you're writing for the CBS affiliate there. What I did not know, and this brings me to the book, was that became sort of an era of disillusionment. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right, it was.
Maybe off track a little bit, and I just thought to myself, this book, which starts with that, and I'd like to start with that too, is powerful because it's not just about Carrie Fisher or the woman in this book. It's about you too. and that you had come from a dark place. And even though you went in to help save Carrie Fisher from herself, she in essence helped save you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that really is what the job felt like. I was in a really dark point in my life, working that overnight shift in LA. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing, and it just kept going. So I had been there for 7 years, and you know, it's tricky because the money is good and it's a cool job and you have benefit, you know, all that stuff. So it's easy to just stay doing something that isn't exactly where you wanted to be. And I was looking for a way out. And randomly, a friend of mine worked at Gersh, a talent agency out in LA. And at the time, Carrie was affiliated with that agency. And she emailed me and said, would you want to be Princess Leia's assistant? She's looking for a writer type, someone kind like you. Do you want to meet with her? And I thought, well, if I'm going to leave this big career journalism thing and try this assistant thing, who better than to try with Carrie Fisher, the icon? So, so I met with her, and that was sort of it.
So it was true that as a child, Princess Leia was your action figure. You always loved her.
Yes, I was a fan of Star Wars. I wasn't a crazy fan. So I had some of the action figures, and I had like Ewoks Village and things like that. But I wasn't crazy about it. But I think that actually helped me to not get too sucked into the world. So I was able to keep things at an arm's length, you know, and I always thought of her as obviously a talent and a kind person, but I never looked at her with a sort of detached awe or like that I could let her get away with anything. You know, we were very honest with each other and had a really good working relationship, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, the opening of your book, which is how miserable you are in your life. You're working overnights. For people who don't know what that means, it means you're working when everybody else is asleep and you're asleep whenever. So you were also missing a personal life. So there were a multitude of reasons I need to change this.
That's right.
So you get that call, but you going to her mansion is priceless.
Yeah. So in the book, I tried to paint a little bit of that scene. So so the book is definitely fiction and full of imagination, and it's just inspired by real life stuff. And what I tried to capture in that opening scene was the same kind of feeling that I had when I arrived to Carrie's mansion. You know, I grew up in Louisiana, didn't grow up in a big mansion, didn't grow up with millions of dollars or celebrities all around me. And so me driving up to her house to these big gates, it was really, a shift started right then. To seeing something different, seeing something interesting. And sure enough, like I rush up to the front door and there she is. And we have this really, really surreal meeting because she wasn't into hiring people. She's very chill. She has people who do things for her. And she told me that I was one of the first employees she ever hired. For the most part, she just sort of pulled from friends and that kind of thing. So the job interview essentially was her offering me a taste of her e-cigarette. She offered me a Coke Zero, and then she basically was like, you seem groovy. And then that started 3 years of working together.
But you know, it seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed as if there was no book on how to be an assistant.
Right.
Your first few days, is it true that the maid or the lady, the older lady who had the brain tumor, literally said, just make sure her e-cigarettes are charged, fix her Coke Zero every morning?
Yes, in real life, it wasn't as dire of nothingness, but for sure in the book, I did try to capture that same spirit where it's like, what do I do? Like, what time do I go wake her up? Where does she keep her medicine? And are there enough pill cases? And so it really was a lot of that learning on the job. And I tried to give that to this character in the book. I tried to give Charlie those same kind of feelings of being a fish out of water, being someone who's really serious and uptight in a world that's, you know, disco balls and you know, colorful lights, you know.
But she adored you, clearly. But is it true about the gray sweater? She gave you a gray sweater. She was starting to change you for good.
So in real life, so in the book, the character gets a gray sweater pretty early on. In real life, the gray sweater came from Australia on one of our trips later on. but she did start out giving gifts, and you know, I think that was, at the time I was very suspicious, because I was like, I'm new to this Hollywood scene. Is she kind of making fun of me by, for example, encouraging me to grow my hair out? Or is she making fun of me by telling me that a sweater wasn't flattering? Here's a $500 sweater from Fred Siegel. So I wasn't sure, but when I look back at it now, I really do think that was just sort of, as they say, her love language. It was a way that she could be generous and caring. And so was she trying to change me? Maybe, and maybe it was for the better, to come out of my shell a little bit and stop wearing black all the time and have a little color. And that's definitely something she brought to my life, was color.
What else? What else did you learn from her?
I think the main thing was I came from a place of being isolated by fear and paralyzed in life. So I was isolated by my own doing, in a way. She was isolated by her fame and celebrity and money. And at the end of the day, I think she was someone who liked to have fun, and I was someone who was really serious, but we could connect on this feeling of being isolated. And then once we had that, we could start communicating, we could start being honest with each other. And then I think all that facilitates a sort of unconditional love. And so I think that's ultimately what I learned, is this way to balance being really serious with letting things go and trusting that things work out.
Everyone knows, of course, that Carrie Fisher suffered from bipolar. She was bipolar and had drug issues. You didn't see the drug issues, but you certainly witnessed the issues of her bipolar, trying to keep her meds correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would drive her to electroshock therapy sometimes, and one thing that was so special about her that you just don't see a lot in the world is just her honesty. She was just really honest about all of those things and all of those struggles. And that's another great lesson that I learned from her, is just keeping it real. And I've noticed in my own life, when I'm just honest about whatever I'm going through, often people are like, me too, or I relate. And there's something about that really helps people connect. And so she facilitated a lot of that in our relationship. She was very open and honest. And the Carrie that you saw, that I saw, is the same Carrie that people saw on TV, in the movies. That's how she was. She was just very real, very generous, very honest. And she had all those struggles, yes, but she was real about it. And never did I feel in danger. I felt like a teammate, and I was really proud of her with the way she was.
I mean, look what she accomplished.
Yeah.
Having that. Was it true that the character of her mother, Debbie Reynolds, who also lived on the property, not in the mansion, but in another building, also very protective of her,
yeah,
of Carrie, was, you know, we all understand she has a mental illness and you must stay, because she saw that she trusted you.
Yes, it was, when I worked for Carrie for 3 years, from like 2011 to 2014. And when I decided to leave, it really was because I ran up against this thing that a lot of celebrity assistants run up against. And that is, do I keep living her life, or do I start living mine? And it's real easy to just keep living that life, because it's first class travel, it's 4 seasons everywhere. Everyone wants to know how your boss is. She's famous, what movie she's working on, all that cool stuff. The money's great. So taking a risk and being like, all right, well, I'm gonna go step out on my own. You know, it gave me pause, but I also looked at what I wanted to get out of life, and that was, I wanted a deeper relationship with Steven, who I just started dating. I wanted to do more writing. I wasn't able to participate with my writers group because I was traveling so much, and so it was just all those things. And so eventually, I thought, I'm just going to bet on myself. And she was also going to do Star Wars in London. So that would have been 6 months or more living in London, and it just was getting complicated. And so I told her I was going to stay and I was going to leave. And Miss Debbie reached out and offered me some more money to stay. And it was so tempting. And even when I look back now, I feel my heart breaks a little bit at leaving, because it was a tough decision. And but you know, I look at the things
on a good note.
Oh yeah.
And so you saw her again
Oh yeah, we hung out and we kept in touch, and I had just visited with her at her birthday party a few months before she died.
How did you learn that she died?
It started with well, so she was on an airplane home, and I got started getting text messages and stuff. I remember laying down to take a nap and started getting messages, and so that's how I knew that there was a problem. And then I called some doctor friends of mine and said, here are the things I'm hearing. What does that sound like to you? And they were like, it sounds bad. And so I was sort of prepared, but it's a very weird scenario because my loyalty and my heart and my relationship was with her. So, I mean, I knew her other assistants, and I reached out to some of them, but it is a little weird being on the outside. And then I also thought to myself, if I were in their shoes, would I want like former assistants and all these friends reaching out to me? And so it was a little weird being, caring so deeply, but being in the dark. And so that was all a little bit of just an awkward time, and so many emotional things going on, you know.
In the book, you do wonderful travels with her, and you have a ball. Was it a true story on the ship where she had sort of the meltdown?
So the book version of all that stuff is fictionalized. So so it's all imagination, but there are bits of real life that inspired some of that. So we did go on a gay cruise together, and that in itself was hilarious when this opportunity presented itself. Of course, the gay cruise came to her and they were like, do you want to go on a gay cruise? You'll be our guest speaker. And she was like, tell me no more, we're going. I've never seen, by the way, so many penises. Penises everywhere. They would do a morning announcement on the cruise. Please do not be intimate in the steam room. We are guests on this ship. It was like that kind of thing. That announcement was for everyone, by the way. They weren't just targeting us, but yeah, on the ship there were some problems with her medications, and she did have some bipolar episodes on the boat, and she later wrote about it in People magazine and explained what had happened, and it was really scary. And it was another weird example of like caring for someone so much and feeling like your job is to protect them, and then kind of being unable. And then the mix of like, so Debbie chartered us a private plane to get Carrie home right away. So that it's another weird moment of like, holy shit, I'm on a private jet, but under these circumstances. So it was a lot of, so it was little moments of jarring reality. But wow, she was a champ through all that stuff, and her honesty and bravery during those medical times is astounding, and I still admire it.
And she got to be Princess Leia again.
Yes.
Yes.
She was so excited and so happy for that opportunity, and she always loved Star Wars and was always so generous with the friends and fans who would come up to her. And you know, we'd be walking through the airport and people would stop her. She'd sign whatever they wanted, and people wanted her to sign their body parts so they could get tattooed. She was like, great. She was just very, very generous and loved that whole thing.
Is it true when she met you, she named you Cockring?
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. I practiced last night.
That's great. That was one of her nicknames for me. She had many, like Normal Twat. Sometimes she would call me Jimmy. I think there may have been a few moments in our time together where it was just too much work to figure out the exact name. But for the most part, she was a person who nothing was ever truly boring. She didn't want things to be pedestrian ever. Her home was not boring. It was full of color and light. And I think she could bring that same spirit to people by just giving them crazy nicknames. And I think that's the world I was living in. So I gladly accepted Cockring or whatever she wanted to call me.
The title of your book, A Star is Bored, is really brilliant because she really would say that, I'm bored, as soon as she comes out.
In real life, I don't recall her ever lamenting, I'm bored. But I do think, but I experienced boredom. And I remember telling a therapist, I'm just so bored. And the therapist said to me, well, boredom is actually the suppression of emotions. Boredom isn't a real feeling. You're suppressing some other feeling. Who knows if that's, but it's stuck with me. And I do think so that for much of my life, I was saying that I'm bored instead of saying other things. I'm sad, or I feel helpless, those kind of things. And now when I look back at my time with Carrie, I think it's similar things, that she maybe felt boredom in place of other feelings. And so when it came to writing this book, I did try to give Kathy Cannon the same vibe. And so I landed on the bored thing. But it also served in writing style as a great device. So I can walk through a scene, end it with Kathy Cannon saying, "I'm bored," and then we move on to the next scene. So that came first, and then later on, the working title at first was just Celebrity Assistant, and I was brainstorming a title, and A Star Is Born had just come out, the remake, and then I was working on this I'm bored stuff, and it clicked, and I laughed, and I thought, oh, that sounds like the title.
Is in the book your character? Is he? Well, he goes from the dark place to building confidence in himself, because in essence, he took charge. He organized her life, which was fabulous, and he started feeling better about himself. Yeah. And was that true with you? Those 3 years were also growth for you? Yeah,
it just being around her gave me a sense of agency. I felt seen by someone. And then, of course, there were little moments of boost to my self-esteem, like being on an airplane and coming in for a landing, and she would say, will you ask them for a chocolate chip cookie for me? And me being like, oh, asking, and then they give it. So there was something magical in like asking for what you want, and they can say no, or they can say yes. Or we would leave the airport, and paparazzi would approach her, and I would say, sorry, time to go. And all of those little stupid moments really did add up to learning how to have a voice and say, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And so it's such a little thing, but those things were meaningful to me and did add up to me feeling like I had some charge over my own life.
What was the toughest part working with her?
Well, the hardest part of the job really was when it felt like a job. And that was just the few times that I had to do like actual assistant work, like book a flight. What hotel do you want to stay at? Because Carrie was an artist. So she didn't love when I would hand her a spreadsheet with an agenda and an itinerary. So trying to figure out that stuff was sometimes the hardest part is just having to do business. And for much of the rest of the time, it did feel like hanging out with a friend, sitting on her back porch. She has this big property in Beverly Hills. Deer used to come walk by. And so at one point, my job was to buy salt licks for the deer, things like that. And so, and by the way, I recognize like many celebrity assistants don't have lives like that. Like this was a very rare opportunity to work for someone who was so cool and so kind. There are plenty of celebrity assistants out there who still have staplers thrown at them and stuff. So well, I had it pretty good. And
that is part of the book. You in the book that your character sort of forms a group of friends who are assistants meeting at a bar and sort of sharing knowledge. Where do you get your root canals done? I mean, that kind of. And
yes.
Did that exist? And did you actually create the assistant's Bible so that the next person up the pike would know what to do?
Yes, so I did write an assistant's Bible, which was basically just me putting basic information somewhere so that the next person had it easier than me. Carrie's likes and dislikes and preferences. And in the book, Charlie does the same for his celebrity, Kathy Cannon. He creates this assistant Bible, so whoever follows up in the job knows preferences, knows where things are, knows important phone numbers. The Assistants Club is a real thing. Like there is like a group of assistants who meet and hang out. I actually never got to the hangout part with them, but I'm on this email chain. I still get emails, and it's basically just everyone forwards and a question. So they just reply all, forward all that stuff. So like, does anyone know a chef who does the plant paradox diet? Does anyone know a a 24-hour security guard who's reputable, who only works 2 nights a week. So there's all these little things, but we all did, we all would get helpful information from each other, because it really is a weird world. It really is like very specific needs people have. So it's nice to have other teammates out there.
You know, I got to tell you, and while reading it, partly because I feel like your mom and wanted to protect you, but it was all, every once in a while I'd get aggravated, not necessarily at her individually, but at the concept of people being so indulged and so coddled. And I think, did Byron ever say, grow up? You know?
I would have never said grow up exactly, but we were honest. And so I would say to her, like one time she did ask for something, and what happened? She might have taken her dog to the bathroom on an airplane. And I would watch these things in awe. Like, she picks up Gary, a French bulldog, over the shoulder, walked down the aisle into the lavatory. And I'm just like, how are they even doing this? What is happening? People are staring. And then she would exit, her and Gary, and come and sit down. And there were many times where I would just look at her and say, like, how do you do that? I don't know, sometimes she would say, to the manor born. One time she joked and said, I was raised by wolves. So they're really, and if they would have said, ma'am, please sit down, she would have just sat down. Like, there wasn't a sense of, like, she wasn't at war, she was just like, I'm going to pee, Gary might have to pee, let's bring a wee-wee pad in there and see what happens.
Yeah. But for others in the assistant world who had not as great people like you had,
yes,
there is that sense of,
yeah. I talked to
water here.
Yes, I talked to someone today who said that she only lasted 1 day on the job, and this lady, a singer, had asked for a specific hot dog from like a specific food truck. So she spent the whole morning tracking down this food truck. The food truck was at a private party. She rushes to the private party. They won't let her in. Then finally she gets one and puts it in a warm bag, but it's hours before this singer wants it. And so she calls the manager and she's like, what do I do? And they're like, just get her Mexican food. She likes this place down the street. So she goes and gets the Mexican food, and then the lady was unhappy. And it's just sort of that kind of, and I'm just lucky that I didn't have that. I had a really lovely, fulfilling experience.
Let me ask you, is one of the reasons that she hired you was because she knew that you could write and you were to encourage her in her writing?
Yes, so her team wanted her to write more novels and write more articles and maybe turn some of her old novels into screenplays. And so that was something they were looking for. They were looking for a writer, and she was also very kind and very supportive of all my projects. Like, she watched my movie and she gave me feedback on my web series that I wrote. And so it was and I learned a lot from her just by watching her write her book. She wrote most things by hand. So she would just take a yellow legal pad and go to town, and then I would transcribe it for her. And then she would do things like, she liked to read before she would write. So she would kind of get in the spirit and the rhythm of the prose, and then she would pick up the notepad and go to town. And those were all, like, I look back at it now and I wish I would have asked more questions and picked up more things. But yeah, she was very supportive.
When did you decide, I'm going to write this book?
It was after she died. I had posted a little thing on Facebook, just about how much I loved her and what the experience working for her meant to me. And it got lots of reaction, lots of feedback. And I thought to myself, it just feels like I have something special I can share. And she used to always say, take your broken heart and go make art. And so I felt like, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. And so I started just going to town and created fictional characters and tried to imbibe them with this same kind of spirit that our relationship had. And I hope people get that sense of heart and humor.
It's there. And let me tell you, if there's any way that woman could be reading your book, she would love it.
Oh,
she really would, because you're being honest and funny, and you do get the spirit of your relationship with what all relationships are, which are complex. Yeah. And that comes through a lot. But that she was helpful to you makes Mother feel better. I want to move on just a little bit because I can see the time. Is there anybody who would like to ask him any questions? Very important that you, if you're kind enough to be here, if I'm not asking the right thing, let us know, either through the chat or yes. Ann Booth is
Hey, I
Hi,
graduated
Ann.
Byron. This is Ann.
Hi, Ann.
I'm tearing up over here because I'm so proud of you, Byron. And
Aw.
I'm just so happy for you. I mean, he's always been such a gentle soul, and it's just amazing. Like I'm loving listening to him. And we reconnected on social media, so that's been awesome. I'm tearing up. I can't help it. I'm just so proud of you, and I'm so happy, going through his cancer journey too. He looks so great, and
Oh, you like that? Thank you.
yes, I love it. So it's just wonderful. I wish you were in town so we could get together, but your book is amazing, and it's wonderful. So
Oh,
just wanted to say
Ann.
that, how proud I
Thanks,
am
Ann.
of him.
Hi to you and Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we need to talk about the cancer because you're just wrapping up the second round of this cancer. 5 years ago you had it, beat it,
Yeah.
and then it reared its head again.
Yeah, so I had testicular cancer 5 years ago. They took that testicle out and they were like, "You're looking good, kid. Go have fun, and we'll just keep doing scans just to make sure it doesn't come back. You don't need chemo." And then they said, it'll be about 5 years and then you'll be in the clear. And I tell you, almost right to the 5 years, it showed up again in the scan in my lymph nodes on the same side, on the right side. So I did some chemo, my hair fell out, but I'm digging it's growing back and I'm kind of excited about it.
Let's all raise our hand that he looks GQ.
You're so nice. You're so nice. So yeah, and I might have to have one more surgery just to, the blood tests show that the cancer looks dead, but there's still a small mass, and they think it's safest to just take the mass out. So I might have to do that in September, but I'm up for it. I'm ready to be done. So I'm in good spirits and feeling great.
Now didn't you, you wrote something about a comedy. I'm embarrassing myself. What is the thing you wrote about the first time you got cancer?
So, yeah, so it's called Last Will and Testicle, and it's just, yes. And it's the journey of a guy who gets the diagnosis and he goes through telling his family and his quirky doctors and all that stuff.
You also, as Rayna said, you have written this wonderful thing about Tilda Swinton.
Yes.
I want to know where that came from.
So my boyfriend, Stephen Rowley, he's also an author. He did Lily and the Octopus and The Editor. His books are great. Please get them. He and I wanted to adopt a dog, and he found this scrappy little dog that was blonde and beautiful, but also a little quirky looking, a little bit like the actress Tilda Swinton. And he said we should name her Tilda Swinton, and so we did. And then I wondered what it would be like to live with the real Tilda Swinton. And so the idea was born for this play, Tilda Swinton Answers an Ad on Craigslist, which is really just absurd, and it's basically a modern Mary Poppins. She breezes into the life of this gay man and helps him with his panic about career, relationships, balding, all that stuff, and fixes him up and then leaves his life. And it's been a really fun time. We went all over the world with it, and I hope to do it again when the pandemic is all done.
Now, are we hoping that this book could be a movie and or series?
Yeah, I hope so. It's, agents have it, and it's all that stuff that's happening. But yeah, we're in talks, and I'm excited to see where it lands and what happens.
And would you star in it?
Oh, I don't think it's so funny. The Hollywood machine is tricky. So I'm not sure, but I'm open to anything, and I've just been saying that my hope for this novel is that it finds a special home. And for me, the specialness could be many things, working with certain people or whatever. And so I'm really just open-minded to wherever it finds a home.
I just go back to the beginning of you being unhappy working the night shift for not all 7 years, but in that place. And now you are on that road as a screenwriter, as an author, as a playwright. My God, Byron, you did it.
Well, as my therapist would say, it's process. So we're on the road. But you know, the thing I say to myself and to other people when they ask is just like, keep going. Keep going. So the people who are working on their own book or their own projects, keep going. And you know, you just never know where it all ends up.
Do we have any other questions out there? Dominic, you're sitting there. I know you do.
Dominic, it's so good to see you.
In the best of times.
There we go. There we go. Okay,
No.
I had to press the button. Hello, Byron.
Hi, friend.
I'm just laughing to myself at going from the overnight shift to being in talks. You are amazing.
Oh, friend.
Channel 4 overnight shift to being in talks about your screenplay.
Friend, I'll never forget my good times there. It really was like a highlight of my life working over there with you guys.
You're very kind. That's a very nice way to put it. How is it different writing in that way, writing a book, writing a screenplay? Is it, you know, when you're writing this book, are you thinking of it, maybe it'll be a screenplay, so I kind of have to write it in that style? How do you write for different formats?
So for the book, I really just focused on letting it be a book. And so I just went with imagination. And the cool thing about writing the novel versus a screenplay or a play is that I didn't have to worry about all the extra things that I have to worry about when writing a play. So writing a play, I have to worry about it's on set, so it's one stage. What is the actor going to do? Are they capable of that? For a screenplay, can I shoot that? Like I can't write an explosion because I can't afford an explosion if I'm shooting it myself, that kind of thing. But for the book, I can go wild and I can create whatever big worlds I want. And so it was fun to do that. But I definitely think my years in journalism and news helped with all that. So God, I've been was in journalism for like 20 years or something. And so the idea of like, I know that you hear a soundbite and you're like, oh, that's the soundbite. And so for me in the book, I know like, oh, this is the quote I want. Like, I feel like I don't waste too much time with frivolous things because I think I've been trained by you and by Angela and Glenn and all these great people to hone in on the good stuff.
Well, it's called mentally editing.
Yes.
Yes, that really is. Sometimes there's a downside to that. You have, and I don't have one of the hard copies, or I'd read it, but I would like you to read the ending of your acknowledgments.
Well, it's easy because the last bit of the acknowledgments is, will you marry me? And I had asked, that's how I asked my boyfriend, Steve, to marry me. I was really nervous about that because we had talked about getting engaged, but nothing was set, nothing was serious. And we've been together 7 years. And so I thought, well, it isn't every day you have a book come out. And so the advanced reader copies were already printed. So the paperbacks and the hardcovers were going to the printer. And so I had this tiny window and I asked my editor, can I please add, will you marry me to the end of the book? And he's like, what? It's going out to the printer, but he made it happen. He sent some emails, made some calls. And I was nervous because if he said no, then I've got thousands of the copies of the book out there with this failed proposal. It's in the Library of Congress, but he rushed a finished copy to me. And so I got it in the mail and I opened it up and I said to Steve, will you look at this last little bit and tell me what you think? And I changed it. It's about you. And so, and he gasped and then he said yes. And it was really sweet. I was really surprised at how giddy we felt after, because I just never imagined that it would feel different, but it did feel different and lovely, and it was very sweet.
And you are officially engaged.
Yes, officially engaged.
At some point you will get married.
Yeah, at some point. I don't know when we'll, maybe we'll just have a small ceremony and then a party after and something like that.
Post-pandemic.
Yes, post-pandemic. I'm ready for this to be over.
Yeah. You are on the right road. I am sure that your family is as thrilled as they can be.
Oh, I feel really lucky. Everyone's been.
Oh my gosh. It has been a joy seeing you. And I really mean that, Byron. I just knew you were special and you've done it. And it wasn't an easy road.
Well, listen, you were the first star in my life. And I'll never forget that. And even little things like you once took me to, some fancy restaurant in the quarter. And I remember talking to you about life. And at the time I was blushing like a crazy person all the time just from insecurity. And you said to me, Your blushing is what will make you great. And I'll never forgot it, but it actually, what you did was disarm an insecurity, and it was a beautiful thing to have said. And at the end of the day, I think maybe the sensitivity has served me well. And I don't know, I just appreciate you seeing me and having been a wonderful mentor for me. And I'm just so grateful.
Thank you, Byron. And on to the next book, the next movie, the next play. We had you here at the Garden District bookstore, and I want to do this again. You can get it at the bookstore. Please read it. You will see it has such depth to it. Yes, it is about Hollywood. Yes, it is about you, but it's more than that. And I hope people really will read it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions, anybody?
We do have one in the chat box from CJ Burke. He is asking how much of Charlie's family life is similar to your home life, the relationship with your dad that you talk about in the book, or the Charlie's relationship with his dad. How similar is that to your actual?
Yeah, so all the characters in the book are fiction and really heightened. So the Kathy Cannon character is very different from Carrie Fisher. My character Charlie is very different. The dad character is very different from my dad in real life, who's a really good man, and he and I have a great relationship. And so I think that you'd find most parents say that I might have done a couple things different, and so I think that like every family, we might be a little bit like that, but for the most part, I feel very lucky that I have a really loving and supportive family, including my dad.
Yeah. Good luck to you, Byron.
Oh, thanks,
The
Angela.
last surgery and take on the world.
Question. I couldn't type fast enough.
Oh, hey, friend, how are you?
Hey, I missed the whole first, so I don't know what got covered and what didn't.
Oh, that's all right, Laura. It's good to see you.
It's so good to see you. Finally, this is as close as we've gotten to actually like hugging each other. So well, long overdue.
Yeah.
So I first met Carrie in '92, and I found her to be, I am from a background entirely full of powerful people. And so I've met the Pope, I've met presidents, I met everybody, and nobody ever scared me. And you know what I'm going to say next? So the first time I met Carrie was when she called me at home in order to scare me. And she is the most intimidating person I ever met. And one reason for that is because and I hang with a pretty smart crowd, but she's one of the brightest people I've ever encountered. And I find her scrutiny, her scrutiny to be unwavering. Like she's never not seeing it, whatever it is.
Yep.
And even when it comes to herself, but that she turns inward and used to torture herself. But I found her incredibly intimidating, even on the very most relaxing of times that we would be together. So I wanted to know I didn't know if you had spoken about that or not, but I wanted to know what that was like to have to deal with on a daily.
Well, when I met her in 2011, she wasn't intimidating. It was very disarming. She was very casual, very chill. I think she was in a phase of winding down her one-woman show, and she was wondering what would be next. So maybe it was a period, it was way before there was any real talk of the Star Wars franchise kicking up again. So maybe it was a quiet time for her. Or
you know what, and you're right, because the last time I saw her was like maybe 5 years ago or so. Yeah, and she was a different person in that she had already raised a child. She had already, she had already gone through a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my experience with her was that she was genuine and honest and generous, and I had a good time.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good, because she wasn't always so relaxed. So that's so good to hear and to know.
Yay.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad she didn't scare the pee out of you, because she had that ability. So
no, it was a really good. What's that?
It was because she was so bright, but was she also you know, blunt.
Well, yes, and in my case, she was being protective. I was dating a friend of hers, and she was calling to ask me about my intentions.
Oh,
So yes, so she was being protective of her dear friend, and I admired that. So I put up with it because it's what I would have done.
mhm.
It's exactly what I would have done. So so I took it, and she, you know, found me to be a good sport, and I got to come over a lot. But yeah, I never didn't find her to be incredibly bright and noticing everything and sort of terrifying in that way. And I don't know if I do that to other people because I also write and I also notice everything and I'm also bright, but nobody else had ever done that to me the way she did. Yeah, where I felt very much on my toes.
Wow. Wow. I'm so glad you joined and gave us another picture of her. That is good. Any
Well,
other?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say also, I don't know if you spoke about her home or not, but I found her home to be such a warm place, given that I had that cold, prickly meeting with her at first. The first time I went to her house, I was very impressed with that. It was very old version of Hollywood, not at all. It was a home. It was a home. It was where people live, and you raise kids, and you have pets that pee on things, and you know, like it was a home. And the refrigerator was always very well stocked with lots of little containers. So
True, Byron, that because so much of it is baking. Would she bake a lot, or was that just the character in the book?
Yeah, no, no. She did like to bake. She made all kinds of things. Sometimes just simple cookies. Sometimes like lady fingers, cupcakes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we'll think of her that way as well.
Yes, yes.
Any final thoughts, anybody? Don't want us to hang up and you not having asked.
Hey, Byron, it's Blaine. How are you?
Blaine, I'm good. How are you, friend?
Wonderful. It's so good to see you and hear your voice.
Oh, you too.
I had the privilege of having known you for 20 something years, our days back at the newsroom at Channel 4. And I remember you were a very quiet and timid guy. And I, rightfully so. We're in this amazing newsroom where legends are walking among us. And to look at you now, what do you tell, 20-year-old Byron who is, cowering in the corner of the assignment desk while we're like, is he okay? Does he want to talk to us? And look at you now. What do you tell that kid?
Gosh, it's hard because I mean, my instinct is to say that I would say to him like, lighten up, it's gonna be fine. Like, speak out, go for it. But then I worry like, would it have all worked out? Like, would it, if I wouldn't have gone through the process of kind of coming out of my shell a little bit, and that being a slow and meaningful experience, would that have affected now? I don't know. Tricky though, but gosh, it does feel very much when I look back at that guy who blushed at everything and was quiet and exhausted and scared. It is, oh, that poor kid. I just want to give him a hug.
But that same kid took the leap to go to Las Vegas and be an on-air person. You took the leap to go to Los Angeles. I mean, those are big, scary things to a lot of people, and you did it.
Well, it is. I do love the quote about doing something despite the fear. Like you don't like courage doesn't mean that you aren't doing it and you're still scared. And so that's kind of. I did all those things and they were all terrifying. In many ways, this is terrifying, but my heart is warmed by all of it.
Hey, Byron.
Hi. Oh, hi.
It's your other mother and your dad, and we just
That's
want to
right.
let you know we're proud of you.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much. Oh,
Dad
love you,
said,
Dad.
Dad said he loves you.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks, you guys. I love you too. I appreciate that.
So nice they're here.
So sweet. So sweet. Oh.
All
Well,
started there.
I just want to pipe in and say thank you both so much, Byron and Angela, for joining us for tonight and talking about your book, and all you lovely people who have come to the event and asked questions and listened and watched. We wouldn't be here as a bookstore without all of you. Every single one of you contributing in your way to help us do what we do, which is bring you the books and connect you with the authors, which is what we love.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for the support. Thank you, thank you. And thank you, Angela. My God, thank you for doing this.
This is my son. You are wonderful. I'm glad the other mother's here. I'm just proud of you, as we all are. And just
Oh,
keep going. Keep
thank
going.
you.
Stay in touch. And as long as we can meet in these little boxes, we're together.
That's right. I love it. Yes.
But thank you, Garden District Bookstore, and hang in there. I know these are tough times, but by God, we need bookstores.
If you guys are all here, we are here.
Great.
Oh,
Do it
thanks.
together.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
You guys have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks.